Greetings and welcome to the broadcast. I'm your host, and we're going to start part number 2 of the red-headed Kandahar Giant of Afghanistan. Just a quick review for those of you coming in right now. If we were to Google Kandahar Giant or do research, we see that a special forces guy was impaled by a spear. Now here's the start page right here. If we go from there over to Google, there's a lot of talk about special forces guys, fatalities, a shootout with a giant. Deeper into Google, photos like this start coming out. If we go over also, as we've looked at the YouTube, we see this kind of stuff. It's really taken off. Well, let's go to Afghanistan. Just review now. As we look over the place, it looks an awful lot like almost Roswell, New Mexico, when you got the real Kandahar area. They try to hide the airport from us, and Google has kind of blocked it out. We'll get around that in a little bit, let you take a look. Where this giant's body was said to have been flown in. Now, on the right is a Kandahar International Airport. As I take us down just a little deeper here, it's going to tell us that we have no imagery. But where there's a will, there's a way. So here's the actual part of the international airport, not the military one. It's said that letter Q is in Quebec on the lower left, possibly was involved with taking a skin sample or a DNA sample of this thing before it was flown to Ohio. On part number 1 at McIsencraft here at YouTube, yeah, there's a skin sample deal there. There's an actual guy who purports to have knowledge of that being interviewed. Now, these mountains in the background are rugged, very rugged. This is a very unusual way to make an airport down here. And this is when you get coalition partners and so forth. Let's see what's really happening down there. The desert sand is swallowing up blood right now as we speak. Canadians have pretty much, they came, cut and run, and they had enough, and they, left. Fatalities on both sides, no mission statement, and what was their crowning achievement, Canada? To give it on back to these people with a nice big smile, and nothing here to see, folks. I'm going to show it to you one more time before we go back to the Kandahar Giant. As we speak, this is what's happening on both sides. The sand is soaking up blood for, you tell me the reason. Also, this kind of environmental damage is being done over there. If there is a Kandahar Giant, I don't blame him for being pissed. Now, if we go back to 1880 like this at Kandahar, the Brits were over there putting their musket balls into people and bleeding the sand, blood with sand. That wall in the background's been already torn down. To find out a little bit better, I was accused last time I bumped into somebody. They said you didn't do that much on the Bible on giants. Well, I thought I did. Let's do a little Bible study real quick. They're mentioned about 30 times, that is, giants in the Bible. And there's things about them, the way they slept on iron beds, the weight of their spears. Here's a guy that's as big as a cedar. Now, that's a lot bigger than 15 feet. A cedar is way up there. As we go a little bit farther, we see the spear points of the giants were weighed after they killed them back in the Bible. In fact, and by reverse engineering almost, extrapolating, we can get some spear points like this throughout history. We can have experts look at these spear points, and there's one on the part 1 on the McIsencraft site, and kind of get an idea that maybe the one that the Kandahar Giant used on Little Danny of the Special Forces was this one right here, something like this. Not exactly, but something possibly close to this. Now, if it's true, it's a sad tale. Now, going back into these desert sands, spears have been around a long time. We're going to get off topic just briefly here. Spears out in the desert. While I was making this, to show you the giant fascination, this golden, look at that crane. This thing was being made on YouTube in China, and a massive thing, what they call the Chairman Mao over there. And then inexplicably they said, oh, that's sensitizing people. They made them tear this thing down, the powers that be, and build it and tore it right down as I was making this tape. Look at here. Here they sell these solid things of gold. One general got into trouble, these gold statues. Anyway, this is said to be a photoshopped thing of a giant, about the size of the giant of Kandahar. It probably is. I don't know. I'm not the Photoshop expert. Then you have this kind of stuff here, this sci-fi look of giants where there's the weird kind of broken vessel look. Then we have a highly sanitized version here of a green giant. Here's what we do at McIsencraft. This is an actual giant portrayed in history. He would be about 16 to 14 feet tall, roughly, if we were to look at this, which is the biblical narrative of number 1's giants. Number 2 are giants like this, the ones that are as big as sequoia or cedar trees that are way up there. We're going to confine ourselves, let's clear ourselves up here. In the Bible, there's two basic types of giants. There's the guys that are about 15 feet or so. They use a spear, and they sleep in beds. We'll look at some of the beds here that they slept in a minute. They have 6 fingers and 6 toes. May or may not have red hair. But the way to study it is to get an old Bible, not old itself, but old manuscript. If you want to go like this, I was late coming to the electronic world. Use electronics to study that Bible. So the next thing that comes up in Afghanistan, you won't need to come here. You can actually do it yourself. Anyway, here's the guy that's as big as a cedar. These giants. Now here's what it looked like back in the day. Roughly this kind of soil, this kind of humidity, and right in the back you can see the kind of a plane here at the Kandahar airstrip. They may have indeed flown the giant out. Now speaking of these javelins and these spears, how far can you throw these things? Well, they're very deadly if you know what you're doing. And you can kill, there's on my other YouTube site, there's these guys like this actually kill an elephant with these spears. It's just brutal to watch, but it's efficient. Here, the javelin, the guys have got these so finely tuned, you can throw them over 100 yards right now. Well, they've tried to change and now, again, they've tried to change the Olympic requirements so they won't go quite as far. But how far could a giant throw one of these things? Now, 6 fingers and 6 toes. Do you know anybody with 6 fingers and 6 toes like this here? Well, let's look it up. It says that every 3,000 people have 6 fingers and 6 toes. I don't believe it. I've been around a lot of places. They don't say, hey, this guy's got 6 fingers, 6 toes. But we're being conditioned. The Boston Children's Hospital right here says, you know what? And they got a thing to snip off the fingers and toes. It's really about 1 out of every 500 babies could have 6 fingers. I don't believe that. I think that's conditioning. Boston's Children's Hospital. Here's a guy right here, a Portuguese kid family, 14 of them family. He's got 6 fingers and 6 toes. His whole family does. He didn't get his snipped off, and neither did the rest of the family. He's still a Portuguese kid, nice kid, a heck of an athlete, but and he's not the only one. So the Bible is going to open up a whole world for us into the Kandahar Giant, maybe some background or some backstory. This is all new to me. Here's called Sons of the Giant. Giants were apparently having birth, or they had some kind of a timeline on them, born into the giant back in the Bible. This guy's bedstead, look at the bedstead this guy's had that the giant slept in. Now, here's one that's mostly wood with some iron. We call this a canopy bed. Guys who are heavy into planetary worship, or even who wet the bed, will have something like this where it goes up to the moon or the skies, all iron, all metal. Then you have one that like a giant might have had, something like this with part wood, part iron. And we have the size, we have the dimensions, we have some of the composition. Now this is a big canopy bed here. These are not healthy, we're told, when you have those linens around there like that. It doesn't move enough air. But back to the Kandahar Giant. When he was sleeping, this is kind of what he was laying on. 6 fingers, 6 toes. Here's the airport down there. Do you believe this has that many 5-star ratings? I don't. Not at all. As we look straight down here, we know there's a lot of strife. There's a lot of finger pointing on anything that happens in Kandahar. Not just these giant stories leaking out, but about, who's building this thing, why is it being built, why does it look so much like Roswell, New Mexico and certain things? Do these things facing south by southeast or north by northwest? What's going on? Did indeed little Danny's mother told that your son died and not told what happened? Or is this just a hoax? They say these guys had to hit him in the head with their weapons. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and I want to take a quick look as kind of a review here. When we look at these Kandahar Giant revelations in the future, we want to talk about, was there a skin sample taken and flown out? Are there more giant things now? We've got a lot of guys photoshopping stuff. We know men want to get back, like this thing on Chairman Mayo, if there's some further developments. Let me get my tape measure out. I'm going to get 72 inches here and show it to you right now. 72 inches happens to be exactly the width of a California King mattress. 84 inches of the length, 72 by 84. If you look at these 2 women here, if you took 2 California King beds, put them end to end, 2 72 by 84 inch you'd get something kind of like this. If you want to get a portrayal of maybe a Kandahar-like, or I should say biblical-based giant. Let's get this information down. How do we get information down? Well, the Bible has, again, we're just skimming the surface in the Bible. This is the scrolled version. You can still get these things. Let's take an example. Bread in the Bible. Did the giants eat this kind of bread? What if you wanted to look up that recipe? Well, right off the bat, the Bibles are fighting. They don't use the same ingredients. So you go to a King James, you say, I want that one right there. That bread that maybe the giant ate, maybe he didn't. And here's the recipe. You go over to Ezekiel, you see the bread recipe roughly in that time frame. Maybe Ezekiel's father saw giants, we don't know. And the water, how to hydrate yourself properly down there when you take this bread. So on the Kandahar Giant, I want to encourage you, if you have to use colors like this, just think of the Bible as something like colors. If you have to use highlighters, think of something like highlighters. If you have to get some electronic media like an iPad, an iPod, a tablet, it's all free. Elsewhere on the McIsencraft site, on the main site, we have free lessons on how to use this software. Software costs you nothing. Do your own research. It's very interesting about these giants. And you know you don't need to be scared. There is a lot of fear with giants and warfare out there and political figures. Again, we don't mean an old Bible that's fallen apart. We mean an old text like the King James Version or the Webster Bible. Now, in the future, when we see political figures telling people to go spill some more blood in the sand out there, it dates back a long, long ways, all the way back to this kind of fighting. And at the risk of repeating ourselves, there are two kinds of heights here. This guy comes out about 13 feet if you were to, put little calipers on there. This guy could be anywhere from 60 to over 200 feet, which boggles the imagination, but they say dinosaurs got there pretty good. If you've had some trouble like wine, for instance, people have told you that wine's bad in the Bible, and it's really not. The Bible teaches responsible drinking of red wine, small amount. Get a Webster Bible if you don't like the King James Version because you don't like Baptist or something. Let me prove to you real quick how easy it is to read the Bible. I'm going to take a couple pages here, maybe 20 of them out of the book of Isaiah. You should read the Bible cover to cover in order, I believe. That's the way I did it, and it served me very well to do these YouTubes when things come out. But here, I'll play these 20 pages like this, and this will simulate, if you were to just do something like this every day, you'll be through it before you know it. There's less reading in the Bible than there is a Sunday edition of a newspaper in a major city, and that includes the ads and stuff. You can get through it pretty quick, just a few weeks. Anyway, folks, take care, Lord bless. If there's any information, now this is all conjecture. We're not saying that, the Kandahar Giant, on the minimum, it could be a ploy. It could be a government deal. Could the medical universities be changing it from saying it's about 1 out of 3,000 people have 6 fingers and 6 toes to all of a sudden saying 1 out of 500 have 6 fingers and 6 toes, conditioning the people for this thing? I mean, stranger things have been proposed. Or is it just a hoax? Or is there a little smoke and a little fire going over there and some unexplained deaths in Kandahar? That's right. Folks, what do you think about this? Now, you don't have to do anything. We don't beg for you to reply. But what do you think about this? This was a new one to me here at McIsencraft. I put it off. I hit the thing. This is part 2. Part 1, apparently, people say I didn't really cover maybe all the biblical stuff in it. And I can't tell you whether or not they took a skin sample of this guy and flew it to Idaho. But back on part 1, they do interview a couple guys. One who said he was a shooter. He says he cut loose with his buddies, and the giant got a spear into one of them, and that was that. And he was a good guy, and the body was taken out. It was flown, I believe, on a C-130, dropped and died. People were told not to look. People were told to rewrite their reports. That's right. They were told you need to rewrite your report, make it fit the narrative. And that in itself kind of tells you something. Well, folks, God bless you all. If you're going to commit to something, commit to getting your hands on an old Bible. Read it cover to cover. Find out a little bit about Jesus Christ, too, while you're at it. I sure suggest it's going to make things go better. Until next time, God bless all of you, and peace to you.